What do an inventor, a painter, and a scientist from the Renaissance have in common? The answer is one person, Leonardo da Vinci. I'm Leah, and I am excited for this one. Renaissance brilliance with a little mystery baked in.
I'm Garrett, feeling curious about what we're going to uncover. Welcome to Laid Back Learning with Leah and Garrett.
Today's topic, Leonardo da Vinci, his life, works, inventions, and legacy. Big canvas, lots of layers.
Quick story. I once stood in that crowded room at the Louvre in Paris, and the Mona Lisa is smaller than you expect, but it pulls you in. That soft, smoky edge around her smile, it felt like she might change expression if I blinked. That moment kind of hooked me on Leonardo's whole deal, the way he makes paint feel alive.
Let's set the scene. Leonardo da Vinci was a high Renaissance polymath. High Renaissance just means the early 1500s moment when art in Italy hit peak balance and harmony. And polymath means he worked at a high level across many disciplines. He painted, drew, engineered, designed buildings, studied anatomy and light, and built theatrical spectacles. His notebooks are like portable laboratories. He sketched muscles, mapped rivers, diagrammed machines, and tested how light creates shadows on forms.
Right, and those notebooks show method. He trusted direct observation, careful measurement, and the idea of trying again if something failed. That approach fed both the art and the engineering. He worked across power centers, Florence, Milan, Rome, and later France under King Francis I. He would take on a painting, then pivot to fortifications or canal plans. He even studied hydrodynamics, that's water in motion, and tribology, how surfaces rub and wear. Wild range for one lifetime.
And here is an easy analogy. Imagine someone today who is both a top tech inventor and a leading artist at the same time. That is the level of versatility we are talking about. He is famous for the Mona Lisa and the Last Supper, but also for ideas like flying machines, an armored vehicle, a double hull for ships, and even a kind of ratio device you could use for calculation. Not all were practical then. Metallurgy and power sources were not ready, but the thinking was so systematic.
One catch. He did not publish his scientific work, so while he discovered a lot in anatomy, optics, geology, and water flow, his findings mostly stayed in private codices. That limited their immediate impact, which is a reminder that great ideas need good distribution to change the world fast.
Why would he keep so much to himself? Do you think it was perfectionism or just the way his life bounced between courts and commissions?
I think both. He moved a lot for patrons like Ludovico Sforza in Milan and later Francis I in France, and he revised constantly. That same habit that gives us the smoky, lifelike surfaces in his paintings also meant he was always refining notes and never packaging them for print.
All right, let's roll on to two anchors of his legacy, the Mona Lisa and the Last Supper. He began the Mona Lisa in 1503 in Florence, likely portraying Lisa del Giocondo. He used sfumato, a technique of layered super-thin paint that softens edges like haze. That is how the smile and eyes feel alive. Transitions are gradual, nothing is hard outlined, and the background landscape breathes with atmosphere. The ambiguity is not a glitch. It is the point.
He kept reworking it for years, too, which maybe ties to reports that later in life his right hand was partially paralyzed. That could explain why some pieces were continually refined and never totally put down. Either way, that painting is now the most famous in the world, not just because of its fame spiral, but because the technique and psychology ask you to meet the sitter halfway.
Switching gears to the Last Supper in Milan, he painted it on the wall of a refectory, a monastery dining hall. It captures the exact instant after Christ says someone will betray him. The apostles react in groups, each emotion distinct, and the composition pulls your eyes to the center with perspective lines. But he used an experimental method, tempera on a dry wall over a gesso-like ground instead of true fresco. Fresco means painting into wet plaster for durability. His way allowed subtle modeling and edits, but it deteriorated quickly.
Yeah, within about a century, viewers said it looked ruined, but the design was so strong that copies and prints kept the image alive. It reshaped expectations for narrative painting, psychology in motion, not just posed saints. Even the spacing at the table feels like a stage where shock ripples outward, and that structure has been quoted in art and pop culture ever since.
So the beginning of the story is technique and intent, sfumato on the Mona Lisa and staged emotion in The Last Supper. The middle is risk and innovation. He traded durability for nuance on that wall, and he kept pushing portrait psychology in a new direction. The end of the story is influence. Even damaged or small in number, his works became models. Artists studied them, copied them, argued about them. And we still measure portrait mystery and narrative drama against his solutions.
I mean, fewer than 25 major works are attributed to him, yet the impact is massive, quality so high it bends the curve on quantity.
Here is a controversy I love. Where was he actually born? Some say Anciano, a little hamlet near Vinci in Tuscany, and some say Florence. I lean Anciano. The local tradition recorded by the 19th century scholar Emanuele Ripetti points there, and it makes sense that an illegitimate birth might happen in a more private setting. Plus, his early ties to Vinci are strong.
I hear that, and Florence is plausible. His father, Ser Piero da Vinci, a successful notary, likely had a house in Florence, and records show the family active there soon after. If the family had means and residence in the city, the birthplace could easily be Florence. Urban records are messy, but the logistics check out.
Why would Florence make more sense to you beyond logistics? Is it about proximity to early workshops and the Medici circle?
Partly, yeah. The family's move to Florence in the mid-1460s put him in range of Andrea del Verrocchio's workshop, where he trained. Verrocchio was a powerhouse teacher, and Florence was a hotspot for humanist thought. People like Lorenzo de' Medici funded art and ideas, so if the network is that city-centered, being born there is not a stretch. Still, Anciano is totally plausible, especially given the privacy angle you mentioned.
Fair. And to be clear for anyone mapping this mentally, Vinci is a town near Florence, and Anciano is a nearby hamlet, so whether city or countryside, we're talking the same region. The uncertainty is a tidy little riddle that fits a life that loved mystery.
Speaking of icons, his Vitruvian Man drawing, the figure in a circle and square, has become a cultural shorthand for the link between math and the human body. The Last Supper shows up everywhere from films to t-shirts, and the Mona Lisa is basically the world's most recognizable face. Part of me wants a show where Leonardo is a Renaissance detective solving a case with perspective lines, water flow math, and pigment analysis.
I would watch that. He could team up with Luca Pacioli, the mathematician he worked with on proportion, and they could break the crime with geometry and a sketch of a gear train. Here's where it gets really interesting. Let's run a what if.
What if the bronze for the Gran Cavallo had not been diverted to Cannon in 1494? Quick context. The Gran Cavallo was Leonardo's planned giant equestrian monument for Ludovico Sforza in Milan. It would have been the largest of its kind, but political crisis hit, and the bronze was melted into artillery to defend against Charles VIII of France. Project over.
If that bronze stayed on track, I think the successful casting would have been monumental, literally and reputationally. Imagine a public sculpture on a scale that beats even Donatello's Gattamelata and Verrocchio's Bartolomeo Colleoni, those earlier benchmark equestrian statues. If Leonardo pulled off a larger, technically advanced version, his identity might tilt even more toward engineer-sculptor, not just painter-inventor. Milan's civic image could have been anchored by that horse, the way some cities are defined by a single skyline piece.
Totally. And from the engineering side, a successful pour of that much bronze might have pushed foundry methods ahead by decades. New furnace designs, alloy control, mold innovations, and crane systems for assembly. Those are the kinds of step changes that ripple into artillery casting, bells, and even architectural hardware. Public art and military tech often share workshops, so the statue could have quietly upgraded other industries too.
And think about how that success could have stabilized his project flow. Political upheaval kept interrupting him. If the Gran Cavallo stood, it might have locked in Milanese patronage longer, and maybe reduced the number of unfinished works. Different timeline, different legacy weight.
I'm down for that alternate path. Maybe later equestrian monuments across Europe would cite Leonardo's solutions rather than just Donatello or Verrocchio, and students in his circle, like Francesco Melzi and others, might have specialized more in large-scale casting workflows. It is a fun rabbit hole.
Leonardo remains a thread that ties art, science, and curiosity together. From a smoky smile to a storm of apostles around a table, from canal maps to flying sketches, it is all one mind asking how things work.
Stay curious, explore the wonders of history, and keep an eye out for the mysteries hiding in plain sight.